Hello, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. Hello, hello. Welcome. It looks like everything's running, so yay, we can just jump right in. So, for today's stream, I'm going to be doing an animation analysis. I had been wanting to do a facial animation test for people to show how I would approach animating a face, but unfortunately today I just don't have enough time to get into it as much as I wanted to. So instead I figured might as well analyze how to get it in the first place, and then we can apply it later on. And Saval, hello! So today I want to go over some clips from Moana. I was actually just looking at these clips myself a little earlier, and I figured, might as well just share it and kind of go over some of the interesting little things that I noticed. I also want to go over today because I realized the last time I did one of these, I didn't explain what my thought process was. I was kind of pointing things out in terms of the animation, but I want to go over some of the elements that we have to think about when we're actually analyzing animation. When we're analyzing animation, we want to be focused on things, and we want to make sure we're actually learning from it and not just watching it. Watching it is a lot of fun. I love watching films. I love just kind of turning my brain off and enjoying the moment. But when it comes to analyzing film, you have to kind of switch your brain into an analytical mind and make sure that you're really breaking things down and asking yourself questions. And Sylvia, hello! So that's kind of what I want to go over today. We'll do some analysis, and I also want to kind of go over my thought process as I'm Sorry, I actually got like some freezing done on my my gums earlier, so my tongue's a little numb. So some analyzing tips. See, it's not that hard. Analyzing. What's so hard about saying that? So I do apologize if I'm stumbling on words once in a while, as my tongue just doesn't want to work quite right today. With that, let's just jump right in. Now, as usual, if you do have questions or if you see something that you want me to analyze in this case, definitely feel free to bring it up. Hey, flesh eating robot, hello! I gotta stream. It makes it more entertaining, I guess. See what words will trip me up, what easy words will trip me up. I usually trip up on something, but now it's gonna be the easy stuff. Let's just jump right in here. So, switch to the desktop, and let's see what we've got. So, the first scene that I want to analyze is an action-heavy scene. The reason for this is, after this, I want to go over a subtle scene. And I want you guys to see the difference. Of course, you'll see the difference in the animation, but how a lot of the same principles apply, just to a smaller extent. The reason we're going to start with a big one, or a more action scene, is those elements are always bigger, typically, than a subtle scene. So let's play through once, see what we're looking at, and then start analyzing. And again, I want to go over the thought process of analyzing these clips. So let's hit play here. This is a really cool scene. Personally, I just love the cinematography of this. So really great posing, just great shot overall, great timing to everything. And there we go. So with this scene, the main thing I want to go over is going to be general posing and kind of the elements that bring it all together. Now, the first thing when you're analyzing a shot, you kind of have to make a conscious choice of what you're going to analyze. And Shiri, hello! So when you're analyzing a shot, try to pick something to focus on. You can approach a shot blindly and go, okay, let's just see what's happening. But I find that if you kind of pick a topic, like, oh, I'm going to focus on the posing. What makes the posing work? Or the facial animation, or the cinematography, the layout of the scene. Pick something to focus on. Now, does that mean that you have to focus on that 100% and nothing else? No. The reason being, at least for me, I'm always like, I'm going to be analyzing a pose and go, oh, wait, that face, how is that working so well? Oh, wait, this, ooh, what's that? I get sidetracked, as many of you know already, very easily. So don't feel like you have to analyze, oh, just cameras now, only cameras, nothing else. No. Feel free to explore and find things that you weren't expecting to find. But go in with a goal. This way, when you come out of it, you can know that you at least reached that goal. If you kind of just go in randomly, you might learn some things, but it just might be a hectic mess of things. And you didn't kind of progress your learning, if that makes sense. So in this case, let's start off with posing and really analyze what makes the posing in this so good. And we're going to be focusing on Moana here. There's a lot of the Kakamori in here, and we've got Maui as well. But the main thing I want to focus on is Moana. So in terms of posing, they are doing a lot of things to really push the silhouette of the character and the dynamic feeling of the character, even though in most of the scenes she is moving towards camera quite a bit. She's not moving parallel to camera, so not left to right. She's moving in and out from camera. This makes things feel dynamic. They feel like there's depth and visual interest. And Nicholas, hello! So, for example, she lands here and she turns and walks right to camera as the camera is also trucking in here. As she runs in the next scene here, she turns and she's running directly to camera. Even as she's swinging later on, right here, it's to camera. And for anyone who's posed a character to camera, that is hard. It can be not so fun because silhouette can be very tricky compared to a 3/4. Appeal can be even trickier. So as they're doing this, they're really working on breaking up the twinning of a character that can happen. So for example, if I'm facing a camera directly, it's very easy for things to twin. I've got both hands up and both legs down. You can't see the legs, but everything's just even on both sides. We are symmetrical creatures. You split us down the middle and it's the same on both sides. And Mago, hello! So to avoid that happening in this scene, they are pushing the contrast of straights versus curves a lot. So this is an easy one to look at. Straight versus curve. So you get this really big contrast in the pose on one side versus the other. They're pushing the line of action right through the pose, right into the hand here. They are making sure that it is not even. And you can see it right from the start as she's falling in. They are pushing the offset of the feet. So you've got both feet here. And I apologize for the crude drawings. I'm just going to try and go as quickly as possible for the drawings. So they have the feet close together, and then they're building in an offset. So we can see that spacing difference in between. This is another thing that's going to build contrast in this movement. And it's just a quick little motion here. Not that it doesn't take a long time, but they're applying all these principles right in here. You can see that at the beginning, she's a little bit more bent here. As she comes down, it goes straighter. And then as she hits the ground, they actually reverse the line of action right in there. Her spine reverses a little bit before coming back in. So they're really pushing this visual contrast in these poses as she comes down and hits the ground. That is very important in getting that dynamic feeling. If they just had her fall and she was straight the whole time and then she landed and she was bent like that, so simplified curves, it's not going to be as interesting. And John, hello! And Yeti, hello as well! So instead, what they're doing is that they have her bent a little bit, they straighten her, over straighten her, so now she's getting curved slightly back before curling in. Now this can be very good or very bad. And this is something that you'll kind of pick up on when you start analyzing animations, and especially this is just an aside here. It's often tempting to analyze good animation. We see something amazing and say, oh, wow, how did they do it? Let's analyze it. That's good. You want to analyze good animation. But if you see something and you go, oh, that didn't really work, or why was that messy? Like, why did I not like that scene? Analyze that as well. So the reason I bring this up is this principle here of reversing, they're doing it very quickly. So we've got basically 1, 2, so we've got curve, straight, reverse curve, and then curve, all within basically 4 frames, because this is starting to curl back up again. S curve and then C. So actually, let's add one thing here. So it's that, and then basically that, S, and then C. So you've got C, straight, reverse C, S, C curve, all within 5 frames. So is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? That should just look like the character's doing this, like just flipping and flopping all over the place. Why does this work? Well, they're using different visual elements to connect it the whole time. That helps. And they're changing it subtly. If you actually look at the individual elements, so let's take a look at, for example, the hips. We'll just focus on this. Hips come down, 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 down. And now back a little bit. So if we analyze the hips, very simple curve. It's just kind of got this nice little S to it. And to be honest, this might be because my pose is a little off here. So maybe a little bit more like that. So it's straight because she is falling very heavily. And then she lands and there's a little curve in there. So the hips are actually very simple. They're not waving around. The spine, let's go with black, I guess. So the spine, or I should say the torso. We've got the torso here. Comes through. And then in and down. So something like that. So you can see, very simple line. Now they're avoiding the boring straight up and down. They could have just put like curve or sphere, 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 straight up and down like this. That's boring. It's not that interesting. There's a little curve to this kind of S to things. So we've got a little bit of an S in the hips and a little bit of an S in the torso. Very slight. Okay, great. What does that give us? Well, what that gives us is 2 elements, the hips and the spine, that are moving in a very simple way. They're not bouncing around. It's just slightly off from a straight line. This keeps things simple. So when they are changing the curve of the body, and this is where we're getting a lot of drawing, so it's going to start getting a little messy. When they're changing the curve of the body, it's not pushing the hips or the spine way off. So taking a character and going from here to a character doing this, and then going back and doing this way, so your character is just kind of flopping all over the place. Instead, they're just shifting the angle. It would be having a character standing here, like that, and then on the next scene, doing this. So the only thing that really changes is the middle, not the top and bottom. They're shifting her rotation of the torso and countering it with the hips so that the overall motion is simple, but the line of action changes. This gives a dynamic feeling to this and avoids just the straight down and boring curve. Now, on top of that, you've got hair and all of that helps to add to these little things. But that little element right there helps a lot. It creates this feeling of life in these 5 frames. Now she comes down. As she hits the ground, you can definitely see her foot catch the ground here. And this causes her hips to move sideways slightly. And I love this overshoot. So she hits the ground. This is her lowest point. Now, this is where the camera move is going to be a little distracting. We have to really watch the animation itself and not what the camera is showing us. So this is her lowest point right here. And then her hips, you can feel them come up as her head is still kind of trying to go down. And then it inverses where the hips are now coming down and the head goes up. So there's this kind of little bounce and this overlap in here to show the weight. She doesn't just land in the kind of superhero 3-point landing and just stop. There's this overlap, this weight to her, which is really, really nice to see. And you can see how all the different elements keep going. So for example, her head is starting to come up here a little bit, or quite a bit, I should say. And the paddle, not quite as much. And hey has this beautiful overlap in his head as he's just swinging through and then snaps back in there. He's adorable. Yeah, 3-point landing, like that's the best way to bust a knee. If you're going to try and do a 3-point landing, don't. If you're trying to do it for reference, you can seriously hurt your knees. And Yeti, did I sleep? I slept 3 hours last night. So a little bit. Not as much as I would have liked. Let's see. I noticed from my 8,000 times watching Into the Unknown with lip sync, it's very, very rare to see mouth shapes that are straight on. Exactly. It's either pushed to one side or the other because they break up hard curves on one side and slight curves on the other. Exactly. And a amazing show to watch for this. And let me open it up. I haven't... I don't have any specific clips, but just on that point, I want to show the importance of that because it is a good analysis and a good observation. So let me find it here. Okay. And let's open this up in a different window so we can still keep our drawings here. Before it. My computer is running a little slow. I'm running so many things right now. There we go. Okay, open. Oop. So, there's one animal doing the 3-point landing, and it's so small it never reaches terminal velocity. Yeah. So, cats are very similar. Cats are able to avoid hitting terminal velocity the way we humans do. And oddly enough, cats that fall out of like a 10-story building often are they hurt themselves less than if they fall from a shorter building, so maybe like 1 story. Basically they've got enough loose skin that they can fan themselves out, kind of catch themselves, not quite a flying squirrel, but like slow down their landing enough that they can land safely. From a shorter height, they don't have enough time to properly calibrate themselves and land, and they can land improperly and hurt themselves. But in terms of films, this is Angry Birds, which if you're interested in analyzing some really good cartoony animation, I would recommend checking this out. Now, the reason I really like it, and I'm just kind of jumping around trying to find a clip here, is when the characters have their faces directly to camera. Well, you can even see it here. Like, look at how far that beak is rotated. That a beak is straight from the face. It's not like lips where we can move it around. Beaks are very much straight on. And here we see this character's head. If we look at the spacing on either side of his eyes, he is very close to looking straight on. It's just ever so slightly rotated. But look at how far his beak goes. The other corner of his mouth is over here. So they really pushed that whole mouth and twisted it just to get this really nice silhouette. Now you can see, look at how pushed that is. The tip of the beak should be like right around here, naturally. So, great facial expressions. At some point, I do want to do an analysis on the animation in here. But definitely watch for things like that. It's going to be very important in pushing the appeal and avoiding that symmetry on the face. It's the same thing as what I was talking about in the posing here. They're pushing the asymmetry of the body to make this appealing. Now she lands, beautiful overlap. And this is another thing that I see a lot of people either have issues with or not quite put into their animations, is the concept of continued motion. What I mean by continued motion is, in this case, she's fallen from a height, and now she's going to stand up because she's being chased. And instead of making it two separate actions, where it's fall, stop, and then stand up, two absolutely separate actions, or making it where she just lands and then whoo, straight back up and it's just one action, they merge them and overlap them ever so slightly so that the fall and the land becomes the anticipation for the up. And it separates them enough so that it doesn't feel like one boring act or one kind of, I shouldn't say boring, but messy action where it's just the character moving and constantly shifting around, but overlaps them enough that it feels connected. So if we watch her head, you can really see it in the head. She hits the ground. We've got this downwards force here. Then it comes up. And as it comes up, her head comes around. And then she uses that momentum, that movement back of her whole body. It's not just the head. You can see it in the hips, in the chest, all of it. And she uses that to push herself forward. It's the same thing as, let's say another example would be, you've got someone, actually this is a clip from the Hulk, the very first Hulk movie, with the Hulk poodle. There's a scene where he's ripping the top off of a tank and he's pulling and pulling and pulling. And as he lets go, the whole tank kind of tears off. And that motion, instead of, okay, he tears it off, stop, and then throw, which he does, he throws the tank. He tears it off and then uses that momentum that he got from there to create an anticipation for the throw. So it's not two separate motions, but it's also not just throw, whoo, or like rip, throw, whoo, just merged and totally separate. There's a little bit of a pause, a little bit of a moment to breathe where the character doesn't just stand right back up. There's this little anticipation, up, down, and then around. that is a great way to make your shots feel connected. That the actions of part of the scene then bleed into the next part. Now you've got some great ups and downs here. Lots of weight shifts here. This is something else that to really sell weight, just make sure the hips are moving up and down. If you watch her head motion, look at how much she's bouncing here. Adds a lot of weight and kind of movement to the character. She doesn't just stand up and then that's it. She feels alive. And Jupiter, hello! So, great bouncing here. Now, going back to posing. And see what I meant earlier about how as you're analyzing animation, my goal was to analyze the posing here. And now we've kind of gone on to all sorts of different topics. That's fine. When you're analyzing animation on your own, feel free to jump around because you're going to notice something like, oh yeah, the pose is cool here, but oh wait, the landing. Oh, well, that's something interesting there. Let's break that down. But as a learning process, do make sure that you get a little bit back on track just so that you can finish your goal of analyzing what you wanted to. Now, I almost went off topic again because I just noticed something else. So in terms of posing, she comes up and goes straight to camera. And this can be very hard to do. So there's a lot of reasons going up to camera like this is going to be tricky. First of all, and this is the most common issue I see with students starting out, is silhouette. The silhouette right now isn't super clear if you consider just the outline of the character. We've got the hair, elbow, body. You've got this, and hair, body. This is not a clear silhouette if you were to just fill this in here. All we see is a big mass with an arm sticking out. So why does this work? Well, we've got color contrast. Silhouette is not just the outer shape. We have color silhouette. So for example, her hair is very dark compared to her skin. This makes it so that we see this form here. So suddenly we see that face. Her clothes are very bright and vibrant. That creates more silhouette and helps to show the form of the character. So for example, because she's straight onto camera, what is very easy to have happen is that a character will end up looking flat. So for example, let's just create a basic body here. So something like this. If you were to look at the lines of the body, they would just end up being flat like this. Or for example, an arm, if it's off to the side, is just like that. That's not interesting. What we want to do is try to add depth to a character. So for example, for the body, making sure we can see the lines forming. This is contour. For the arm, maybe something a little bit more like this, where we see that tube shape of the arm, more like this. That adds depth. And by having these bright colors on this character, we see that on the design, on the belt. The shirt, not so much. This is pretty straight right there. But we've got the rest in here. So this keeps it from feeling flat as we're looking at it from the front. Going back to silhouette, Hey here stands out because, again, he's very bright. And she's holding him not against her shirt, which is very close to the same color as his comb here. Like that would be very similar. She's holding him to her skin color. So that makes sure that he stands out. So silhouette-wise, this works because they're overlapping elements on separate colors. So for example, me right now, I've got a white shirt. So if I do anything here, it's going to sell pretty well. If I had, though, a piece of paper like this, if I hold it here, you're going to see this very well. If I hold it here, it disappears. It's very hard to focus on. And if this is an important thing, no one's going to see it. So I'd want to put it here or out here. Then suddenly it stands out. So we've got that. What else are they doing? Well, even though, let's go here now. Even though she's walking towards camera, she's not directly towards camera. We're still getting a little bit of a 3/4 to the face. This adds appeal. Looking at a face at a slightly 3/4 allows us to push the offsets in the face, make it more appealing. And that's what they're doing here. They're pushing the contrapposto of the face ever so slightly. It's very slight. You can kind of see it if I extend the lines here. There's the contrapposto. There's this line of action in there. And again, color contrast in the silhouette. They're using the silhouette value to really push the posing and to avoid the character having to stand with their arms out. This is what tends to happen a lot with student work, is in order to get a clean silhouette, everyone starts posing their characters with all the limbs out or trying to move everything so it's very outside of the positive space of the character. You don't have to do that. You can overlap. Just make sure you do it smartly. Other things they're doing to help push this, making sure we can see the joint of the arm. We see the depth of the arm as well. So we can feel that rotation going in there. Making sure that there's little overlaps in the character. So for example, the body right now, well actually, let's go over this. The head and the body are contrasting. So the body's actually turned this way and the head is turned the other. So even though we're only seeing like that much of the character from just above the waist upwards, it still feels dynamic because there's this twist in the body versus just being perfectly straight and in line. Keeps that dynamic feeling. On top of that, it adds depth. This arm is very clearly in front of the body, right there. The other arm, we can see, goes behind the body, right in there where the armpit would be. And the deltoid goes over top here. So we're starting to get this depth to the pose instead of posing it straight to the camera. And this is going to be very important as we go into the actual animation part. So coming in, really good posing. And beautiful overlap in the shoulders. You can see how as she comes down, her whole body's coming down, hits, and then the shoulder isn't just loose and flopping. This is simple overlap. The shoulders would kind of come down, and then as the body goes up, they drag. In this case, no. She is using her arm to propel herself. Watch what happens. As she goes down, her hips are still low. They're coming up a little bit, but look at that shoulder. You really feel that motion in there of the whole shoulder kind of leading up. And then once again, that hit on the ground. Beautiful overlap. Shows the weight of the oar that she's holding. Just wonderful posing all around. So, very nice. I just saw Hei's feet. Look at his little feet whipping around. So this would be normal, like just drag right there. And actually, look at that. This foot cuts right into her body. See how you can just see the edge of the foot right here? Let's do this in black so it's a little easier to see. Just a little bit right there. And then poop, there's the foot again. It's kind of halfway here, all the way here. So it shrinks, disappears, and then poop, it comes back. It cuts into her body. Is that a bad thing? Not at all. And this is one of the big things with animation is that when you're learning animation and you're in, for example, Animation Mentor, things like this will get nitpicked on you a lot. Like, oh, there's an intersection. Oh, there's a tangent. Oh, there's this and that. When you're actually at a studio, as long as no one notices, it's not a bad thing. Like, does it ruin the shot? If I hit play here, does anyone notice that foot disappear for that one frame? Nope. No one's going to notice it. Does that mean I have to redo all my animation just to fix that one frame? Nope. Don't have to worry about it. So don't worry about being... And this kind of falls into, as you get more experience, you need to know where to pick your battles. Some things are going to be very important to the point where you have to go like pixel to pixel, making sure it looks good. Other things, don't waste your time on. You've got 3 other shots that you've got to do this week, and they got to get done. So don't get stuck on details that aren't visually important. So for example, here, her face, because that's the focus of the scene, we definitely would want to make sure everything on her face is working 100%. Down here, not so much. Okay, so let's go to the next scene here. And then this is awesome. Horrible and awesome. What I really love about this is the posing of the mouth. So see, again, the switching tangents. I was going to go to the scene after this, but this facial pose is just so good. Was watching Sleeping Beauty a month ago and saw a clipping with the minstrel on the table. Yeah, exactly. Even those old 2D cartoons have little things like that, or where they might not color a certain area by accident. So looking at this here, kind of going back to the last time we analyzed animation, how quickly facial expressions change. So she's going from this really big shocked surprise pose here. So this is on 143. Now, to go from that all the way to the frown here. So we'll just kind of focus on the eye area first. So 143 and then 147. 4 frames. And the spacing on these 4 frames is not 143, 147, is not, oh, a slight ease. So 144, 45, 46, 47. So it's not like this. If we look at the spacing, you can see just a tiny bit of eyebrow motion. It pops almost all the way down and then settles in. So we get 1, 2, 3, and then down. So that spacing, so 3, 7, is actually very close, almost all the way, and then like that. They really exaggerate that spacing on facial expressions. This makes it dynamic. This would be boring to look at for a face. Even though you've got the same timing, if you don't have the spacing correct for facial animation, it's going to look weird. So, comes down. Now, as it comes down, they really push the interconnectivity of the face. Brows come down, and you can see that they don't just go straight up and down. If you watch the edge of the brows, they're actually coming in slightly, right there, before coming in here. So they actually arc that way, not just straight up and down, or worse, going from here and just going in a straight line from out into angry. That would be very mechanical. So they build a little bit of an arc in the brow. And usually you'll see this in the inner brow. The outer brow doesn't really move that way. So the outer brow is gonna, it might have some arcs, but not nearly as much. As the brows come down, it starts to push the eyelid down. The top lid gets pushed by all of this skin up here. Because you can see she's not blinking. She's not closing her eye. She's just bringing her brow down, and that's pushing the lid down here. And then we get this nice brow shape, which is creating the frown expression. I know I've mentioned this many times to people in Q&As before, but when you're posing out eyes, make sure the eyelids are not shaping themselves. Eyelids are very simple. They wrap around the eye. Everyone will have kind of a different shape to their eyelid, but that shape doesn't really change unless something pushes on it, or in the case of an angry expression, it's the brow overlapping the eyes. So like right here, it's not the eyelid. You can actually see the eyelid go back behind this, and it's all the skin over top that is creating that angry expression. So really pushing that. Now, lower face is the same thing. So brows start, and then you can see the mouth start to come up, and the jaw anticipates. She's going to open her mouth to put this chicken into her mouth. So her jaw actually anticipates upwards before opening up. And how long does it take to open? Well, we've got here, this is the stop of the anticipation. Well, actually, let's do it this way. You've got the antic, which is going to be from 144. So let's start it here. Antic. So we'll just go 44 to 46. That's the antic. And then we go from 46 right here, and then it's open, and pretty much all the way, I would say probably by 50. It's hard to see with the chicken in the way, but we go from 46 to 50. So very short, 2-frame anticipation, 4-frame motion of the jaw opening. If we look at the anticipation, it's very fast in the sense of the spacing is not directly in the center. It's kind of hard to see with the camera move, but it's easing out ever so slightly, not perfectly center, but just slightly off of center, favoring the beginning so it doesn't pop, and goes to 46. From 46, we get a little ease out here. Most of the motion is actually kind of in the upper lip here, coming up into the sneer. And then the mouth pops a little bit, really pops and settles. So we're getting tiny motion, settles in at the end, and something like that. I could probably push it a little bit more. So, like that. So that's the spacing of the mouth open. So you can see it again. You can get the timing right. That's simple enough. But if your spacing ends up just being this, it's just not going to work. You need to really focus on the spacing when it comes to facial animation. And same thing here. As she's opening, one thing I really love about this is the subtle detail of, as she's opening her mouth, it starts very toothy. So you can see here, we really see the teeth there and at the bottom. The lips are curling upwards and down. But then the lips come back in and she's gumming the chicken. She's not biting him with her teeth. She's rolling her lips in. So the teeth or the lips actually go up and then back down on that face, which is a beautiful touch right in there. And it creates so much more personality than if she just opened her mouth and that's it. And as she's doing this, really look at how that skin here pushes up. So you get this really big motion here, or this pose there, and see how it kind of shapes the lower lids and creates these I guess you could say almost bags under the eye. Yeah, that frame is very disturbing out of context. But she gets this very extreme shape here. And that's because she's kind of sneering and is pushing these muscles up right there. These are pulling up, which is pushing the inner portion of the eye up. Okay. So lots of different things in there. And I love this, like the simple way of she's letting go of the chicken. Her pinky finger releases first and then the others go. Okay. Now, let's go on to the next scene. The thing with analysis is you can take a scene that's, let's see, it was 165 and 140. So 25 frames. This whole shot here is 25 frames long. And we only analyzed the face, not much else. And it took how long to go over this? It's amazing what you can pick up on just a small scene. So you can really dive into analysis a lot. So a side note here. One of the ways that they are really pushing the hectic nature of this moment is that they are using Dutch angles to exaggerate the tension. So for example, a Dutch angle, for anyone who doesn't know, is when you take a camera and you rotate it so that the horizon line is at an angle. If you kind of watch this here, this would be a straight line. That would be kind of a straight line. But if you look at the horizon, it actually comes up over on that side. When we cut to the next scene, it's fairly straight. She looks over. Now the horizon line is pretty straight. This is from her perspective. So we are right now seeing what she is seeing. We're keeping the horizon line straight. Now here, it's straight once again. She is taking charge of the situation. She is not panicked. If she was panicked, we could add a Dutch angle to show the panic and the what do I do? She's just acting on instinct. No, at this point, she is confident in what she's doing. The horizon line is straight. Now we go here, and because we've shown that confidence in the character, instead of making this Dutch angle making the scene feel scary or off-putting, like she's out of her element, now it's giving the sense of motion. Like even in just one pose, everything feels like it's moving. And that's because the horizon line is way over now. This creates a very nice dynamic range. Now, in terms of posing, once again, she's running directly to camera. And this type of running is very hard to animate because your silhouette is going to be non-existent. But they managed to do it very well. And the reason that it's succeeding is that they're pushing the 3D space of the scene. The character's coming forward, but she's also moving in and out. So a good example of this is this arm here. It's kind of sticking out here, but then as she runs, you can see how it wraps back behind the character before coming back out. So it's not just kind of doing this during the run. There's this depth and this twist that we can feel just by the arm silhouette. How would they film reference for something like this? Usually studios have big shot or studio or reference rooms that they can shoot reference in. Sometimes they'll get actors to come do the scene. Other times they just make it up. So especially kind of extreme motions like this swing here, you're not really going to get reference of someone doing this exact moment or motion. It's very complex. But you can find like rope swings and stuff in parks and just have someone swing on it, and really you're taking those little elements that you see in those and just bumping them up and exaggerating them like crazy. And Sarah, hello! In terms of this posing, they're really pushing that depth to the pose. For the legs, they're avoiding the perfect straights. So imagine the knees, let's say these are the knees, and they're pointing straight at the camera like this. And the character's just running like that. That's not going to be interesting because, well, it's flat. So even though she's running at camera, it's hard to see because she's wearing this kind of dress thing, but her leg is actually positioned here. And the other one is out here. So it creates this line of action to the pose. So she's not just straight, hips straight, leg straight, the other leg straight, arms just out like that. They're really pushing the twist in the body. And it creates this dynamic feeling, even though it's still going straight to camera. Even here, there's a little bit of a angle to the legs, this one as well. So she's going to camera, but not perfectly to camera. Her head is even at a little bit of an angle here. Really pushing that silhouette, pushing those arcs. That beautiful spacing here. And then that nice jump. Now, a lot of this is kind of tricky to see with motion blur, but pushing that contrast in the pose. So here we've got a line of action like this. Here, same thing. So watch what's happening with the line of action. It doesn't just stay the same. It's bent here, still there. And then as she's reaching up, now it's going straighter. And then as she jumps, we get a little bit of a curve before we get that beautiful line of action right through the entire pose. And this stretch versus bend on this side. So they really exaggerate that side there. As she catches on now, you can still see it. This stretch versus squash on this side. And then as she swings, they still have it. So here we have this kind of curve here versus that. Now this is a little simplified. This is the big thing with line of action and with silhouette or straights versus curves. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go perfect straight and perfect curve. A straight can still have like variation in the form. There's muscle, there's bones, there's form to the human body that is not just a perfect straight. We can exaggerate that a lot of times, but other times you don't have to. But if you kind of look at the overall shape of it, it's still pretty much a straight. Whereas this one has a curve through the whole thing, through that silhouette. And she swings through and you get this beautiful overlap as she just slowly transitions. This is one of the few moments where a slow transition really works really nicely. If she was just to kick out her feet and by this point already have her feet way out here, it wouldn't have that kind of graceful motion. And that graceful motion contrasts the really hectic movement in here. So it's very, very hectic and then something slow and then hectic again. So they're using it as a way of breaking up the action. If she was kicking and spinning through here, it might be very hard to read. It would also show that she's not really in control. So really pushing these design elements in here. And the next time she swings, They push that even more, but look at this. Beautiful straight versus curve. And again, does straight mean that her arm should be positioned perfectly straight up like that? No. Same thing with the line of action. Her line of action is going, oops, don't want to do that. Her line of action is going this way. Well, does that mean the arm has to be positioned all the way up to match that? No, not necessarily. We can bend elements and it still works. Those concepts are not a global. If you have a line of action here, it doesn't mean that everything has to follow 100%. And we get this really nice push in the pose. Look at that. It's so cool. Such a dynamic pose. Shoulder way up, hand curled in. So nice. And then when she lands, it changes. They reverse that curve. They are pushing the reversals to show how dynamic things are. Even at the start, like the curve is actually this way, and then it gets bigger and bigger before reversing, and now she's running. And actually, it looks like there's a foot slide right here. You watch this foot, it kind of slides screen right a little bit because it was right on this board. So even with the camera move, it should have been right there. Is that a problem? No, because it looks good from camera. If they kept it there, what would have ended up happening is that the silhouette, that foot would have still been here and then overlapping here. So by having the foot slide a little bit, it just clears up the silhouette and makes things read. So again, this is where the big difference between live action and animation. In live action, well, we can't do that. In live action, your actor is going to fall if they try to slide their foot during a run. In animation, we try to follow the realistic, oh, that's how life works. We want to emulate it. But in a moment like this, we can cheat just a little bit to make the animation feel better, to be more than life. And one of my favorite ideals of animation is that if you're animating it and you're just sticking to 100% what would happen in real life, well, why not just shoot reference? If you're animating it, then it should be animated. It should be more than life. It doesn't make it better than life. It's different. It's exaggerated. So pushing that can be very helpful in kind of bringing your animation to another level. Now, with that said, watch this other foot plant here. Look at all the detail that's going in. It's not just contact, and for those of you who've done vanilla walks and stuff, oftentimes there's the foot plant. So the foot comes in something like this. And let's actually go not so high because that's going to break the ankle. So the foot comes in, it contacts the ground, and then the next frame, it's flat on the ground and maybe the toes are still up, and then flat. Very simple foot plant. And if you were to look at it from the front, imagine the foot was a cube. Most people have the foot land flat on the ground, and then it just kind of flattens out. So it's a hinge, basically. Look at all the details in this foot plant. One, she's landing on the outside edge of her heel. That's what actually happens with most people. We land outside edge of the heel and we push off with a big toe. That's the reason we have a big toe. So we've got this dynamic angle. The toes, beautiful pose in there, makes a very interesting silhouette. Now, as they land, everything flattens out, and this is where most people would go, okay, foot's planted, done, yay! We don't need to do much more. But watch what happens as she plants, the edge of the foot rotates over, and the toes are actually sliding a little bit over that way. As she goes a little bit more, the big toe stays the same. It's pretty much where it is, but the little toe starts to curl in a little bit. This is because the little toe doesn't take much weight, and it's for a good reason. It's very easy to break if we put much weight onto it. So it's actually already starting to curl in, and as the foot pushes up, the big toe is pushing up off the ground, and everything else comes up. So in these contact 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frames, they put a ton of little details that take that foot plant from boring, just contact flat and that's it, to really dynamic. And especially if you're animating a character that's barefoot, you need to go into this detail or else it's going to look weird. Very nice. Now here, this is a beautiful example of, again, the foot push off and just getting a really nice silhouette in the foot. Even though it's only here for like 2 frames, for that 1 frame, they made a beautiful silhouette. And then this is just a smear. It's pretty much a brick. Okay. Beautiful motion here. And I love this. This is a beautiful silhouette. We've just got this great line of action in there. Everything's pushed. Coming back through the arm forward. Now we can't quite see the other arm. If we could, we'd see it kind of back here. But that hair still adds a beautiful kind of contrast. Her leg is coming out this way and the hair is kind of doing this. So it creates this beautiful contrast in the pose. Oh, how do they get the character to look so blurred in these poses? Oh, so all of these poses here, this is motion blur. So as you render the scene, you would turn on motion blur, or you can do this after the fact. And it basically recreates what happens with real cameras. So for example, I think I can do it with this. If I do this, you can see my hand is really just a blur. You can't really see any details. The camera can't keep up and can't capture the image fast enough to keep it visually clear. Most cameras are like that unless you're using like a high-speed camera, the types that can capture 10,000 frames a second. So to replicate that, we can do that in rendering. You activate motion blur and it'll create that same effect of the camera not being able to capture all the motion completely. Some shows do it, some shows don't. So if ever you've seen Madagascar, for example, that whole show is rendered with 0 motion blur. Any blur or any like exaggerated motion is done with stretching, multiples, like old-fashioned 2D techniques, which is really cool. Motion blur tends to be used for more like Disney, Pixar, more, I don't want to say realistic animation, but animation that is more, let's put it this way, less cartoony. Hotel Transylvania, I don't believe has motion blur. I could be wrong. I can't remember exactly. But beautiful pose here. And again, if you look at it, it's just going from a straight right here. And then beautiful line of action. And it's actually got a dual line of action. The main one is going back here, but then there's a slight secondary kind of going through this way. Now here, once again, she's coming pretty much straight to camera, but not perfectly straight to camera. And they are pushing that pose. Look at it. Look at that beautiful line of action. The overlap in the body. And by overlap in the body, I'm talking about the overlap in the posing term, not in the animation term. Overlap in animation term is, for example, if I do this and my hand kind of overlaps, it continues that motion. That is the animation term for it. In posing terms, it is when one pose or one form overlaps the other. So, for example, if I had two spheres, that's okay. But if I do this, suddenly we have depth. We can see, oh, one's definitely in front of the other. This applies to when you're posing. And this is something my brother taught me when I was learning how to draw, is if you're drawing a character's torso, the big problem that people have at the beginning when they start learning how to draw is that everything is posed out as if they were side by side. So if I was to draw the torso here and then the head and arms, the head would be, or I would maybe draw the neck here on top, the head over top of this, and then the arms like this. And it creates this weird, like, it's flat. It's always going to be flat. No matter what you do, it's going to look ugly and flat. So instead, think of overlapping forms. And when we're animating and posing a character in 3D, we want to think of the same concept. It's easy to forget about it because we're in CG and it's easy just to rotate something and haha, done. But you want to think of those concepts. So for example, if you want a character to face a little bit more 3/4, make sure that we can see that overlapping form, how that shoulder comes up over the body, and then on the other side, it doesn't. Like that. Now suddenly we can very easily see this rotation to the chest. The neck doesn't just sit on top, it sits on the front of the chest. It sits down here. So that overlapping form of the neck and then the head over top of that. Suddenly you've got a pose that is much more dynamic and, oops, wrong controller, and visually interesting right off the bat, simply because it's actually got form to it. So that's what they're doing here. They're using that overlapping concept to really push this depth to the pose. You've got the back leg coming through here, the other leg way over in front. Like the hips are really rotated. Line, straight versus curve, super beautiful curve, and then a bend on the other side here. So you're getting that and then that. Overlapping shape of the shoulder, just beautifully done. And then the hair, once again, kind of coming in and contrasting that. So everything's kind of arrow shaped, building up to this point here. So just a fantastically beautiful pose. And as she's getting into it in terms of animation, the really cool thing is that not all of it hits at once. So for example, that back leg, it's pretty much done moving like right from the start. It's just kind of dragging behind. It's not doing much. The other leg, it's coming up here at the beginning, but then you can actually see it's starting to come down. The knee is moving down as the foot comes forward. Why is that important? Well, it builds contrast in the pose. A pose like this is very easy to have everything kind of move in the same direction. So she's anticipating back, but that knee, oh, we want to build more power. So we're going to anticipate that as well and bring the knee up here as the arm comes back, which can work, but you're going to be sacrificing something. You're going to be building an anticipation in the leg, which is great, but you're going to sacrifice the contrast of the pose, which diminishes the harpoon anticipation. And that's the important thing here. So instead, they have the leg come down ever so slightly, just a little bit. And what that does is it pushes the the stretch in the entire pose here, and that really exaggerated line in the body. As this is coming down, that's going up. And then as she throws, whew, it comes through. And Sir Wade, hello! Whoa, jeez. 5,000 bits? Oh, jeez. Man, thank you so much. Oh, I really appreciate that. That's awesome. Oh, and I wanted to mention this earlier, but that Whack-'em 1 video you did was amazing. For anyone who hasn't checked it out, check out Sir Wade's Whack-'em 1 video. It's really cool, especially for those of you who are interested in getting a tablet, and especially a screen tablet. It seems like a really cool thing. I haven't tried it myself, but from the video, I'm kind of tempted. So thank you again. Hey! So we've got this really extreme anticipation in here, building up. And now as she throws, it goes very quickly. And this is one of those things that could be very easy to kind of over animate. Big motions like this, you might want to push the big anticipation and then throw, and then it keeps on going, and there's a lot of motion and a lot of stuff happening. If you really break down this scene, there are basically 3 poses, and they just transition and hold between them. So you've got this kind of straight pose here where the leg is leading. Everything is kind of a dragging pose. Everything is kind of dragging as the head and the body move upwards. And as I draw it out, you can see that a little bit more clearly here, how everything is dragging from this point that's being pulled upwards. Then it hits pose, so that's pose A. Then we hit pose B, and it stays there for a long time. So I would say pose B actually probably hits right around here, and then the rest is a moving hold. So that holds and just keeps like exaggerating and exaggerating for about 6 frames. And then whew, she throws and she hits this pose, pose C. And she stays in that pose. So this whole shot here of her jumping up and throwing really consists of 3 key poses that transition very quickly between each other. So for example, this is the start of the motion. The foot's kicking down, the harpoon's starting to move forward, the oar is moving screen right. So let's say that's 324, the beginning of the motion. And it stops and hits the next pose about 329. So 5 frames, and then the rest is a hold. So really exaggerating that. The other thing that they're doing is that they're exaggerating things, how to phrase this in a clear way. They're making sure that the eye direction does not get muddied. So what I mean by this is, as they're moving, it could be very easy to have the foot kick out and maybe kick out way over here as she's throwing. And in the last pose, like really push this line of action because we want to make a reversal. We had this big anticipation here, or maybe better yet, oh, we want to reverse it. So the foot's going to be up in the air here, and then there's going to be a big throw like that, and really just push all these different elements. But if we exaggerate just willy-nilly, without thinking of the construction of the scene and what the audience should be looking at, we might end up creating a scene where the audience is looking at her foot instead of at the spear that she's throwing. So instead, what they do is the foot, it starts the motion. It kicks down, big spacing right here, right there. And then it just kind of stops. It eases in and stops as the arm now continues the motion. So we get ease, faster, really go through, and then look at that spacing. Throw, and then the hand keeps moving, and we get this nice subtle overlap in the hand and the drag right in there. So they purposefully stop the foot from moving. In this part, it's just kind of slowly dragging back, drawing no attention to itself, so that our gaze is entirely on the arm and the face. So as you're animating, especially big actions, be very aware of where you want the audience to look at. The audience will often look at either the thing that is moving the most or the thing that is moving the least. And it depends on how you frame it up. And I'm actually going to show another shot after this that kind of goes over that concept. And I forgot to mention, I got my shot idea for Sean's class. Nice. Definitely show me the modeling when you're done. I want to see that. So coming through, beautiful throw. Once again, really pushing that overlapping posing. So the shoulder is way in front. The body is kind of coming through here. The other arm way back here, if we could see kind of an X-ray of the scene. The hips really exaggerated. So the body is rotated this way. The hips are rotated the other way. So this hip is forward. The other one is coming back. And let me double check here. Yeah. So the other leg is, you can kind of see it right here. But there's this twist in the body. Makes it dynamic. Anytime you can add a twist, it's the contrapposto concept. This is more interesting than if the shoulders and hips are the same. But if you think about it in 3D, you add another dimension. If we've got an object, oops, perspective, my curse. If we've got an object like this, and then we rotate another one like that, this creates a dynamic feeling as well by having opposition to each other. So this is kind of like contrapposto level 2, adding that extra depth in there. And it's just contrast. That's the big thing, contrast. So she comes through, and as that pose kind of evolves, it goes from this really nice dynamic line of action through the arms, and then the entire body kind of becomes a line of action. So it's the same pose, but it's softening up after the throw. And then this was the last one I wanted to analyze on this, was the swing here. Again, just to show the power of contrast. This is right to camera. Her arms are twinned. They have no option not to be because she's holding on. And yet the pose is still dynamic because they are pushing the twist of the body. If you look at the rotation of the chest, it's actually, we can see a little bit more of this side versus the other. So she's got a slight rotation to her torso to camera. Not only that, the shoulders are at a slight angle. So they're not just perfectly straight. The hips, really big angle. And this creates this beautiful straight versus curve. So they're really exaggerating these concepts, and not just having the character, like it's easy when you're looking at a pose like this to go, oh yeah, it's exaggerated. Mm-hmm. And then, oh, I'll do it in my animation, and you'll take the body, put that at an angle, and then, okay, let's take the hips, and okay, we'll put that at a little bit of an angle, and then the leg, we'll put that at a little bit of an angle like that. Okay, I've exaggerated it. But the beauty of doing draw overs in numb tongue. The beauty of doing draw overs when you're analyzing a shot is once you draw over it, you can really see how far they pushed it. So one of the big things that I see in a lot of student work all the time, and it's not a bad thing, it's just it seems to be human nature, we want to keep things balanced, is that if you look at the neck, the base of the neck, and then draw a straight line down to the hips, almost all the time in student work, that's going to be very in line with each other. The hips and the neck stay in line. They might push the pose, really push the contrapposto, like exaggerate that a huge amount. But when you look at the base of the neck to the middle of the hips, it's always in a straight line. And this takes your pose and goes from being dynamic to kind of flattening it out a little bit. You're still getting contrapposto, but you're not pushing the range that you can actually go. And if we do that here, look at the neck versus the middle of the hips. Look at that distance between them. They are pushing this pose, when you actually draw over it, a lot. That foot is not just slightly under the body like this, it's way out away from the body. It's nowhere close to the body. So as you're analyzing, especially cartoony animation, that's something you really want to pay attention to, things like this. But anything like this even, pay attention to those lines, how the neck lines up to the hips and how those line up to the feet and where the feet are in relation to that. And oftentimes you'll see that the poses are way more exaggerated than we would normally think of. I'll see if I can find another scene here. And then this, I just love how she goes from this kind of little curve here, and then as she comes in, actually this is another good point. I love this scene because this would be a scene where you could easily go, okay, she's hanging there, her line of action is a C curve this way, and now she has to curl in a ball. Well, she's already hanging there. What's she gonna do? Well, she's gonna bring her knees up. Okay, let's bring the knees up, and she curls in this way. Done. Easy. But have you really pushed the exaggeration of the pose that much? The line of action is, it's exaggerated more, but there's no reversal. It's not really dynamic. So what they do is that they really push the fact that she's bracing for impact and she doesn't want to hit Maui, and they curve her the other way. It's the same pose, knees curled up, but they add this twist to the body, which again, twists, it makes it dynamic, but it reverses the line of action. So now we go from this curve here to a curve this way. And we almost get this cannonball effect. The other positive about this is as it hits, it gives us this clear silhouette of her, not super clear, but we see her face versus the legs, and she's almost just slamming into him versus hitting him with her knees. It makes for a more interesting pose. And then you don't see this at speed, but her hands going through his hair, even here, like the hand in the hair at this point. And once again, they've reversed the arc here. What do they do after the impact? Look at her arc, her line of action. Reversed once more. So by reversing it here, not only did they make the beginning more interesting, they made the impact more interesting. If she was bent the other way, she would hit and it would just be more of the same bend this way. So really pushing that. And then here, the flailing is wonderful. Now, when you're animating flailing like this, it can be very daunting because it's a lot of motion that has to read very well. When you're first starting this, if you've never analyzed animation, it can be just like, what the heck do I do? How do I make this work? It's just so much motion, especially considering we have to make up a lot of it. You can't shoot a reference for a moment like this of someone in the air just hanging before they fall. But if you break it down, it's actually not that complex. It's just lots of simple arcs. So for example, let's take a look at this foot. if you just look at this foot as it comes up, 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 and then down, and we look at the spacing, look at that. Simple arc. Nothing more. Okay, let's do another one. Let's do the other leg. So the other leg starts here, comes up this way, kicks out, and then up. And okay, make sure I'm following the right foot here. Okay, so we get this. A little bit more of a chaotic arc, but this still works because she's literally kicking. It's almost like she's doing a punch. When you're doing strong action, so for example, a punch, you want a straight line. My fist is not doing this as I'm punching. This is weak. If I do this, it's strong. So she's kind of anticipating kicking out and then arcing. They're just thinking about it as a kick. That's it. So what looks like a very chaotic line of action is actually anticipate in, kick, and then overshoot. Simple when you kind of break it down in that sense. And Brandon, hello! And films love this music? Yeah, I think you mentioned that during the Metroid one. I love Metroid music, even though I've never really played a Metroid game, sadly. So we get that. Let's do another one here. Let's do the hands. So we've got one of the arms, I think it's right there, comes forward, through, over, and down here. Well, just an arc. Same thing. Other arm, it's the same thing. It's just an arc. They're all just separate arcs. Individually, they're not that complex. When you put them all together, it adds complexity. The same thing happens with smear frames. And the thing with a smear frame is, let's say you wanted to make this really cartoony, Hotel Transylvania style, and you wanted to remove some frames to make this faster. All you would need to do is, you've got this pose here. Well, now that you've kind of got the spacing planned out, you would use that as a guide on where you would position your smears or your multiples. Like this. And now you've got a multiple in your scene. It's the same concept. Really, when you've got chaotic motion, watch your arcs and your spacing. Make sure your spacing is not just absolutely chaotic and popping and stopping. Each one of these is actually just a really nice, beautiful arc. Now, the way it's kept simple, I should definitely mention this. The way it's kept simple so that we can actually read what's going on and it's not just an awful mess of flying limbs, is if we watch her head is very stationary in comparison. It's very simple. Especially as soon as we see her face, it doesn't really move. Look at that. Very simple. It's not big arcs like that. It's just up and down. Simple. So by keeping that simplicity in place, it allows us to focus very cleanly. And the same thing with her body. If you watch her body isn't flipping through the air, doing all sorts of things. It's just reversing its arc, going from a curve this way to a curve this way. And then that's it. Simple. So really great elements in there. And then these scenes I just love. Especially in terms of facial expressions. Her smile here is so nice. Okay. And then his expression change here is fantastic. While we're on the expression change, once again, look at how fast it goes. And a little Danny, hello, and Peter, how's it going? So he goes from this kind of closed expression here He anticipates down. So this is the extreme down of the pose. This would be on frame 52. The brows basically finish moving on frame 55, 4 frames. The mouth, same thing. When we actually look at when it starts moving, which is about 56 here, and it changes to the other expression, it's about 62, and then it just kind of eases in, settles in there. So about 6 frames, pretty fast. Expressions don't take long to move. In all the analysis we've done, like today and before, the longest was 8 frames. The average is 3 or 4. Keep that in mind. It's very important to keep that in mind for facial animation. Now, in terms of facial animation, I did want to go over one more scene. Hopefully I still have some time. And that's this scene here. So the reason I want to go over this is we have a very big contrast in animation. Are 3 or 4 frames more of the snappy reactions? No, that is average reaction. Just that kind of, hello. Like just me smiling normally, not like, like big pop, haha, boo kind of thing. It's just smile naturally. It'll be about 4 frames. Now, keep in mind, that is 4 frames from one pose to the next, but then you have extra frames to settle in. It's kind of like a blink. When you're animating a blink, we'll use this for an example because it's very dynamic. Let's say you've got the eye here, opened up, and we're just going to close it down. So for the first frame, we might have a little bit of a motion on the upper lid here, kind of closing. Then the lid closes a little bit more. Usually you want to avoid this, where it's perfectly halfway. That's not usually the most interesting. So instead, let's push it just a little bit more. And if I want a kind of snappy blink, I'll keep it up a little bit more here. This way it kind of snaps shut right there. So now we've got that blink. Snap. As it closes, you can usually hold for 2 frames. So usually what I like to do is on the second frame, push the eyelid down. It kind of creates the feeling that the top lid hit the bottom lid and kind of pushed it to create that fleshiness in it. And then as the eyes open, it usually doesn't take long. So the eye will start to open up. And maybe basically be opened up all the way here. So that would be a normal blink. Like that. And this is a little even right in the middle there. I should have pushed that a little bit more. How do you see each frame of the movie? Oh, this is Keyframe MP. It's a free program. I have the paid version, which gives you audio scrubbing and things like that. But I highly recommend this. For anyone here who wants to analyze films, take a look at this. The free version is fantastic. I used it for years and years. Really, the only reason I got the paid version for myself was because I wanted to do drawovers for people. But you can use the free version in something like Epic Pen, which is also free. If you do get the paid version, keep in mind there are 2 paid versions. And let me actually show the website here. So this is Zubrig, Keyframe MP. So there is this version here. This is the Keyframe MP paid version. $35. It's good. It'll add, I believe, audio scrubbing and things like that. But if you're going to pay for this, I recommend skipping out on this one and instead going to Keyframe Pro. So Keyframe Pro is $79, but it adds timelines. You can have multiple projects open at the same time. You have all your draw over tools, all of that. text tools, things like that. You can save out a project. So once you do all your analysis here, I could actually go to File, Save Project. And if I want to come back and keep analyzing, I've got all my drawings in place. So it's really, really helpful in that sense. So for anyone who wants to do this, check out this program. It is fantastic. It's built for animators. That's what it's made for. Now, going back to the eye here, we've got this blink. And this, I would consider the timing of the blink from when it starts to close. So frame 1 closes and then opens. So that's, in this case, about 4 frames to close. I did 3 frames to open. So it's a little bit more of a tired, kind of like, oh, whoa, kind of blink, where it slows down and then pops open. And then as it opens here, this is not the end of the eye animation. The end of the eye animation is actually probably going to be at around frame like about 14, where the eye kind of overshoots a little bit and then settles. So it might open up just a little bit more and then kind of settle back down a little bit right through here. So you get kind of a little bit more opening and then down. That's just the fleshiness of the eye, the skin settling. I don't consider that part of the motion. So you could say that, oh, well, the eye until it stops takes 14 frames to move. Yes, that's true. But the actual main motion is done in 14 frames. Or sorry, done in 4 frames. And then the rest is just a settle or an overshoot. The reason I separate these two out is because you want to make sure you go from one pose, so a smile to a frown, within 4 frames typically. Any more than that, and it starts to feel really slow. So for example here, he goes from this kind of neutral expression here. We'll kind of look at the brows. So this is frame 1. And when they go up into this expression, by the time they reach that expression, right about here, this is 3 frames. So they go from there, up, and then they keep going up, yes, but they hit that expression in 3 frames. Same thing with mouth motions, all of that. So he goes from open mouth here, really wide, so that's frame 14. Frame 15, it closed a little bit. 16 a little bit. 17 pretty much closed. So about 4 frames depending on where you want to count it. 3 or 4. But what do you do in order to see Moana's frames? Oh, okay, so how to see the actual film? The way I do it is I take my DVDs or my Blu-rays in this case, and I use a program called Handbrake, which is made for converting DVDs. And let me get you the link here. Converting DVDs into, in this case, it's an M4V format or an MP4 format, which you can then actually scrub through on your system. And what I do is I don't convert the whole movie. Well, I convert the whole movie. That way I can analyze anything. But in this case, I just converted sections of it. So for example, if I take key or Handbrake here, so where are you? There you are. So this is Handbrake. So you would just drag in the file you want to see. So boop, drag in a file. And there's a few things you want to do. First, go to your video settings. You want to make sure the frame rate is set to constant. And the frame rate, the actual FPS is same as source. This way you're not changing the frame rate and you're not getting a variable frame rate. Variable frame rate is great for making files smaller, not great for analyzing animation. After that, if I just want a clip, I'm just going to select the frames that I want and find the frame range to export. Or you could just do a chapter or seconds, whichever works better for you. So for example, I've got a folder here of just a bunch of different clips of just certain things that I can analyze. And this makes it easy for me to go, you know, I really want to just figure out this one thing. Oh, let's bring that in. And I don't have to search through the whole movie. Oh, and Handbrake is free, completely free. It's fantastic. It's a great converter. So basically 4 frames before you can read the expression. Yeah, exactly. But it may keep moving as it sells. Yeah, exactly right. So you want to have between 2 clear expressions, the change between those 2 clear expressions should be about 4 frames, 3, 4. The most, like in all of the clips I've analyzed for people on Twitch here, the longest it has been is 8 frames. Nothing longer than that. And that was an extreme slow expression. I only saw that once. I've seen a few that are 6, but 99% is 3 and 4 frames. So expressions are fast. And I've mentioned this before, but the reason is the muscles in the face are small. The smaller the muscle, the faster they react. Think of it like a machine. The way muscles work is that the body sends a jolt of electricity into the muscle, it activates it, and that electricity contracts the muscle. Well, if it's a small muscle and you're setting the same amount of electricity into a small muscle versus a big muscle, that small muscle will react really quick. The big muscle, it's going to need more electricity. If it just sends a little tiny jolt, you're going to get barely going to move. It has to send more. And because it's bigger, it's heavier, which means it needs more time to start moving and it's carrying more weight. So with the rest of our body, we can move very slowly and really change in slow ways. Our face can't do that. If you try to just raise your eyebrows perfectly even, like if I take my hand, I can just do this. Perfectly even and slow. Try to do that with your brows. And as you try to do that, most people, if you haven't practiced before, you'll notice that your brows don't just go up in a nice smooth motion. They kind of go, They're trying to bounce up. Same thing with like a frown. A frown is a little easier, but if you're trying to go really slow, like not just a naturally slow, like go abnormally slow. Try to really frown. And it takes a lot of concentration to not just have it go and close in. Those muscles are not made for subtle motions, for tiny little nuanced things. They pop in a pose and then hold that pose. So that is a huge thing with faces. So even the jaw is probably the biggest muscle because it's the masseter muscle right here. And then you've got the muscles down here that actually open the jaw. You can feel them right in there. But like this, if we go from the jaw here, 26 where it's closed, and then it opens, there's a little ease, and then it hits its maximum right there, 4 frames. And if you actually watch the spacing, yeah, exactly. It's one of those things that it's like, oh yeah, I remember when I first learned that too. It's like, yeah, of course that's why muscles move the way they do and why faces move quickly. Duh. Why didn't I think about it sooner? And when you think about it in terms of animals, it's why things like mice and little birds, they have these quick, like, scrambling motions versus something like an elephant that's slow and everything is just heavy looking because their muscles are smaller. So any little motion they do is going to be fast. They can't slow themselves down like an elephant would be able to do, for example. Now, in terms of spacing, I mentioned this before, but look at the spacing of the mouth. It is not even. So in those 4 frames, so we've got 26 to 30. That jaw is not opening. So 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, like that. It is not opening evenly like that. It's also not just, oh, ease in, ease out, in the middle, like that. That's going to get you boring spacing. Instead, watch what happens. You get tiny little anticipation. A little bit more, pop, settle. So it's 1, 2, or just 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we look at the spacing here, it's actually, and let's do this here so we can compare. So we don't want this. So 26 to 30. It's tiny, a little bit more, and then down. That's more interesting. We want that. Facial animation, again, it's fast. It's hard to move something evenly with our face because our muscles just want to fire quickly. So you'll get an anticipation and then it'll just slam into the next pose. This is what makes lip sync read. And then you just hold that pose until you get another change, and then again, quick and fast. And if you look at expressions, it's when you're framing through, it's easy to go, oh yeah, but it's taking so long because we're going frame by frame by frame. But if we watch it at speed, really focus on the expression changes and how fast they're transitioning. Now, this is not the best shot for this, but it's in there, and it's even there in subtle shots. And this is the main focus I wanted to go over, is this scene here. I love this scene because we just had a big scene with a lot of motion. He's slapping himself and doing all of this yelling, and then it cuts to her. And if we look at the start of the scene here, and let's do it this way, go to the end of the scene here, and just let's see, where is my hotkey for this? Just do this. Ah, dang it. Wrong button. Okay. There. And there. Look at the change in there. It's almost nothing. This is a very basic animation. The total length of it is only 19 frames. So we've got a 19 frame shot. Let's just go frame 1 here, frame 19. If you were given this shot and you had to make her just do this expression, it can be very easy to under animate it because, oh, it's only 19 frames. That's less than a second. And if you actually consider how much she holds at the beginning and end, so for example, she holds this pose and she's holding this for, we'll say, before any real motion happens. So we're at 49 here. So this would be frame. And actually, let me, just to show this even better and make it easier, I'll set the range here. So now, oh wait, 22 frames. I miscounted. My math was off. So not 19, but 22. So 22 frames. For the first 3, 1, 2, 3, nothing's changing. At the end, let's kind of go to the end here. So that's going to be frame 11. Nothing else really changes there. She's just kind of sliding. So even more, wow, we only have to animate from frame 3 to frame 11. What an easy shot. 8 frames of actual motion right in here, because this is just a hold. You can see a little bit of rotation in the body. And then this, a little bit more rotation in the body. But the main draw is the face here. Wow. Just go from pose A to pose B, done. No. Even in a subtle shot like this, the breakdown of the animation is going to be extremely important. The problem I see a lot of times with student work is that you would have something like this, and this is an 8-frame segment, and they would go, well, 8 frames, that's pretty short. Let's have the transition happen. Just pose A, pose B, done. And then it slowly just goes from the first pose here and slowly transitions to the next pose. It's still pretty quick, 8 frames, but it's not quick enough for faces. So in this case, let's actually watch what happens. So we're going to separate the face into kind of 3 segments. We're going to have the brows, the eyes, and the mouth. And each one of these is going to react at a different time. So the first thing to react is the eyes. Those react first. And you can see just the lids come up. And if we kind of watch those, the lids just kind of come up and simple, easy, clean. So from frame 4, and they hit their final pose approximately frame 7. There you go. So the eyes actually only took 3 frames approximately. If you really want to go into the ease, like it's closer to 8. So 3 to 4 frames to do most of their motion. And then the rest is a settle. So the eyes are there. Okay. Let's look at the brow. The brow is offset from the eyes. It starts a frame later. But the brows have so much subtlety to them. They don't just move straight up. It's not just brow starts pose here, next pose it's up here. Wow, quizzical, straight up. Watch what happens. As it moves, the first thing that happens is that they move inwards and down. They're going the wrong way. They're anticipating the motion. And then as they open up, they come up and around. So they're not just going up right here. The inner brow is going in and then up and around. And you've got 1 frame of anticipation that then settles in here. So if we go and look at that, that means that the whole motion of the brow is from frame 5 to the next expression, which is probably around frame 9, and then slowly settles in. 4 frames. That's for the whole change, including the anticipation. Now the mouth, same thing. Now the mouth starts to move same as the brows, very slightly, and just comes in, and there you go. It's just very simple. Now, what are they doing here in the mouth? It's not just transitioning straight as well. If you really look at it, we can easily see that the mouth is closing. That's the most obvious thing. But how is it closing? That's very important. Our mouths are not as simple as they seem to be. A lot of people go, oh, well, the jaw, that's going to open and close the mouth. Not necessarily. For example, I can smile like this and then bring my top lip down like that. So now all you see is my bottom teeth. Or I can do it the other way, and now my top lip is up, and it's hard to talk like this. My bottom lip is up, and my top lip is also up. So now you only see the top teeth. Our lips are flexible. And the way you close the mouth, in this case, is not that she's closing her jaw and kind of, to exaggerate, she's not doing and closing her mouth. She's doing the opposite, where her brows are going up and her mouth is going down. So you get the brows going this way and the mouth ever so slightly goes down. So she's kind of looking at him, like this kind of stretch to the face. And you can see this in the top lip. Very subtly, watch the distance of the lip here and how it's almost imperceivable. But as you scrub through, you can feel that stretch in there. So as the top lip kind of pulling down, the bottom lip still moves a little bit, but it's the top lip doing a good chunk of it. And it gives that little bit of a stretch to the face and exaggerates that contrast. Again, contrast, this is the big word for anyone who's in my classes, is the contrast. That's the big thing. Yeah, you can see it in the corner of the mouth. Look at the corner. You can feel that drop. Not only that, it doesn't just drop straight down or in a diagonal. It doesn't just go, or it's actually going in a curve. And there's a little anticipation. If you actually look, I don't even know how clearly it's coming up because of the encoding on the stream, but on this one frame, you can feel the lip go up ever so slightly and the corner of the mouth up, and then it goes in and then out and around. So that corner of the mouth is actually doing this as the lip goes up and then down. There's arcs in this tiny motion. They are pushing the arcs. And this whole motion goes from frame 5 to pretty much frame 8. So again, 3 frames. 3-4 frames. So very quick. And on top of that, there's rotations to the head. So she's not just kind of moving backwards. Look at the angle of her head. She actually brings her head down and overshoots. It goes down and then slightly back up. It's not just there and then angled down. It's kind of there, angled down, and then slightly back up. And then it just holds. So in this tiny motion of 8 frames of animation and then lots of moving holds at the beginning and end, there is a treasure trove of subtlety in here. And it's not just, oh, an arc here and an arc there. There's all this thought being put into all of these elements. Even the lower lid, for example, you can see that kind of stretch as the cheek kind of drops ever so slightly. So they're pushing the contrast in the eyes. If you look at the beginning here, the bottom lid is touching the iris, and then at the end there's white all the way around, just enough to see. Not so much that it looks like she's doing this with her eyes, but just that little amount. So really try to push your facial expressions. It is one of those things that it's hard to do. I will say that right away. When you're first learning how to do facial animation, and for those of you in Animation Mentor, you know that. For those of you who are in class 4 in Animation Mentor right now, you will experience this. You're experiencing that right now, and you're going to be doing lip sync in the next few weeks, which is going to be even more so. But keep in mind that it's not a matter of extremely confusing hundreds of controls. Well, I can show you. I think I've got the rig open. Oh, no, I don't. Well, let's see. Let's just open this up here. So when you're dealing with an acting rig, there are so many controls to deal with. But if you take it simply, it's the same as posing, like what we were showing before with the full character poses. All you need is pose A. Oop. So pose A right here. And let's turn that off. So pose A. Really make it appealing. Shape the pose. Get those eyes to be beautifully designed. Get the brow to have this wonderful flow to it. Make that contrapposto, all those design elements. Make it beautiful. You go to pose B. Same thing. Make it beautiful. Exaggerate. Think of where you want to go. So for example, pose A, maybe it's scrunched up. Pose B, it's bigger. So you exaggerate those. Now when you have to animate between them, you need to figure out what moves first. So is it going to be the eyes reacting first? Is it going to be the brow, the mouth? It all depends on what the character's thinking psychologically and what's happening to them. What's going to react first? Usually it's the eyes. Then it's usually the brows after that. That'll start first. So it's eyes normally, brows second normally, and then the mouth will usually... It's very rare for the mouth to act first. But you find that out, and then you just make quick transitions. Quick transitions, and not boring transitions. Have the brows anticipate emotion. Have them overshoot and then settle. Little things like that. It doesn't have to be much. As you can see here, it's tiny pixels, but it makes a huge difference in your animation. So, like, looking at a character rig like this, you can see just how many controls there are on that face. There we go. That's a little easier to see. There's a lot. So if you get caught up in trying to animate all of these over a really long span of time versus just making a really nice pose, making another really nice pose, and taking 4 frames to animate. 4 frames to animate between 2 poses, even though there's a lot of controls, not super hard. If you're having to try and think about that in the sense of, oh, I've got 200 frames and I have to animate this eye control and this eye control and this eye control and this one and this one and this one and this one for 200 frames, you're going to be in a nightmare of hell. It's going to be a hellish nightmare. But if you can break it down to, I've got expression B or A, B, C, D. For every change in expression, quick change, done. 4 frames, 3 frames, 5, maybe 6, 8 on the rare occasion. Suddenly, these complex poses become much simpler, and you're not fighting this, this mess of controls. And let's see if I can find kind of one more facial expression that's kind of a little bit. Okay, let's go with this one. So this is, I love this scene as well. That scream is so good. So this is another great scene for studying facial animation. There's a wide range, subtle shots, more complex shots, just good body mechanics in general. So let's actually go with her. I was going to go with Maui, but these poses are a little bit more clear and interesting. Just because there's not so much motion blur. So let's start the range here. This is another thing I like about Keyframe MP is you can set the range that you want to look at. So for example, this whole clip was over like close to 3,000 frames, I believe. But now I can just set, okay, frame beginning end. Now it's 80 frames. So now I've just got this and I can easily scrub through. Okay, so let's count the amount of expressions there are. We've got 80 frames. That's a lot of animation we have to do on the face. Oh no. Let's count the individual expressions. We've got 1. And let's actually do a different color so we can actually see it. See what we're writing. So let's actually do it in the corner here. So expression 1. And we're going to actually go, there's changes within an expression. So you can see there's like this squash in the brow. That's not a change of expression. That's working within a pose. Same thing as a full body pose. If you've got a character who's like this, and they kind of go, huh, they haven't changed their pose. This is still the same pose. You're working within a pose. Now this might be a bit of a pose change. This might be that is a pose change. The entire body has changed. It's hidden under your frame now? Yeah, you're right. I did hide the number right under. Yeah, perfect. No one can see it. Let's boost that up just a little bit. Bleep. There we go. I keep forgetting that there's that. I should put like something in the corner of my screen. So there. So it's working within a pose. It hasn't changed yet. Okay, let's find the next expression. Probably right around here when she closes her eyes. There's this kind of, she's trying to calm herself. 2. This, she's opened her eyes, but she really hasn't changed expressions yet. It's still pretty much the same expression. Okay. Let's go here. So this is the start of this angry expression. Probably right around, we'll say here. 3. Now, this we can get picky. I would say that is a different expression. because we go from angry, or like stern, not angry, to quizzical right there. 4. Hold. Brows come up. Let's go to the next clear expression. So I'll put 5 here, but I think there's an expression in the middle. Yeah, we'll say this is 5, and then it kind of drops down into 6 here. Now, to be fair, some of these, it's going to be hard to like pinpoint because there are like subtle changes that happen. But in all of those 80 frames, there's about 6 major expressions. That's not too bad. Now, if we actually count out how long those expressions last, so we've got from 1, when does it actually start changing? Like clearly start changing, not moving, but transitioning. Probably around frame 12. So this is still 1. Then we take 1, 2, 3, 4, get into the next expression. And actually, I would almost say that it probably frame 15 would be where we could say, but we'll go right there. Now it goes through, same expression. Where does it start changing? Probably right around 24. So this is still number 2. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It takes 6, but we're counting all the individual elements right now. The actual, like the brow, how long does that take? 1, 2, 3, 4 maybe, and then it's in position, and then it just keeps settling down. But it hits the change where this is flat here, kind of flat, to the stern kind of expression here. That happens in about 4 frames. Okay. Yeah, right around there. So we've got that. Okay, how long does this last? 29. Probably around 41. So this is number 3 still. Then 4. And then, once again, hold. This one, it just holds perfectly. Okay. I would say probably up until about 60. So this is 4. Now this is a slow transition. But there's a lot going on. There's kind of an anticipation. There's a lot of different smaller elements that can be broken down here. And then we get this expression, which holds for a little bit. It just really holds for a few frames. Actually, I could even say that it starts a little earlier. It holds for like 4 frames approximately. It's just the different elements are kind of offset, so it's hard to kind of pinpoint one specific start and end. But you can read the expression change right there. So I'll count that as the start. So we've got that, and then it hits the end, and there we go. So with this, how much are we actually animating? Out of this 80 frames, we are technically animating the whole time. Yes, like I don't want to mislead people here and go, oh yeah, see, no animation, haha, we're only animating these chunks and everything else stays perfectly still. No, you're still animating it. It's going to have moving holds. It's going to have slight motion. So for example, if I'm got a sneer, maybe it relaxes just a little bit. Or maybe there's a swallow in there and it's kind of something like that. There's going to be motion. But the core changes. The core, like raising an eyebrow, lowering the eyebrow, going from a frown to a smile, that kind of stuff. How much of that do we have to animate? Well, let's see. We've got 4 frames there. Here, this is a little longer. So this is 6 frames, so we're at 10 frames. This is 3 frames, so 13. Another 6, so 19. And then another 3, 22 frames. 22 frames that we actually have to really worry about expression changes out of 80 frames. So basically a quarter of the shot is actually expression changing. The rest is just a holding, a moving hold. And this is the big thing that a lot of students run into, and I myself, when I was a student, I did all the time, like I improperly, is I wouldn't make the holds. I would have my first pose here, expression, my next pose there, expression change, and then in between, I would just go, oh, and let's start splining, and let's start in-betweening. And it would just be this slow transition of the entire face just morphing and changing over way too long a span. Just make the hold. And then the actual transitions are fast. And if you just do that, most of your facial animation is going to be pretty much rock solid right from the start. It'll be a solid base. From there, it's just going in between these big changes and breaking things up, making sure that the eyes open and close properly, making sure the brows anticipate emotion and overshoot, that each individual element is quick. So even, for example, this slow motion, where was it? Here. So coming down here. So you can see the eyes, they don't really change until right here. So the eyes from 27 is basically 2 frames. Yeah, 2 frames of eye motion where they're kind of squinting and then they just open. They anticipate a little bit right there where they close a little bit more and then open. So 2-3 frames. The mouth. Well, the mouth is going from this simple curve here to this curve here where the one side is a little higher than the other. Well, where does that happen? It's kind of happening from 24 to 27. 3 frames. And then it just kind of stretches out a little bit more. It hits the actual change in 3 frames and then just exaggerates. The brows. The brows are things that are taking the longest. So the brows start dropping here, 24. And they pretty much, they stop moving way later. So you can see the actual stop of the brows is around 33. So they are moving for 10 frames. But the change in the brows, the actual expression change, happens here on frame 28. So 4 frames. And then from there, they just keep lowering and kind of pushing in a little bit. But that would be like going, okay, I've got to pose here, and I've got to pose here. The change between here is maybe from 1 to 5, 4 frames. And then afterwards, it's just pushing a little bit more. It hasn't changed poses, it's just exaggerating it a little bit. And that might take another 5 frames right there. So I hope that makes sense. I know it's kind of it's a layered thing. It's not like there's a clear, this is the start, this is the end all the time. But if you look for the core change of expression, where you can read the actual personality of that expression and the moment it goes from happy to sad or angry to confused or whatever expression it is, keep those short and then work in the next expression more. Don't have it transition slowly. I love this little motion here. She puts her hand on her hip right there. And as she does so, you can really feel the fingers curling in and kind of pressing in. And then she readjusts there. And you get first this nice gentle like push in. And then a more hit right in there. And a sterner kind of motion. That's such a nice little detail. They could have just kept the hand on the hip right from the start, or like put it on and then just stay there. But that little tiny adjustment adds so much. And they make sure that they time it. They offset the timing from the oar. So you can feel it like right there. It hits, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. About 5 frames later, that's when the oar starts to come down. Let's see. When it's settling from 5 to 11, is that spacing going to be more linear? No, it's going to be more of an ease, or it could be an overshoot. So like that frame 5 to 11, where am I? Right there. Sometimes it'll be an ease where it's just going to slowly ease in. You wouldn't want the spacing to be like 5 to 11. So that would be 6, 7, 8, 9, oops, I missed one. 10. So let's say that. You wouldn't want it to be really like this. You'd probably, if you're going to ease in, really ease in. So it's 5, 6, 9, 10, 11. So it's more like that. You're really pushing that ease. Or you have an overshoot. So it's going to be, let's say 5, 11 is going to be maybe a little pushed more here. And then maybe, let's say, frame 7 is going to be this. So it's going past, it's contracting, and then coming back in. So it's still the same pose, but now it's overshooting, and now it settles back. So you're adding complexity, but you're within one pose. So this is usually something that happens in the brows, especially when we raise the brows, they'll go up. And then even if I go up and then hold my brow, the muscles get tired very quickly. They're not muscles that are used to holding a lot of weight or holding a pose. It's very hard to just kind of walk around like this all day with your brows up. So if you go into an expression change, it'll go up and then relax ever so slightly. So you're not just going to get a straight ease, you're going to overshoot and then settle. Same thing with the mouth, especially for like smiles and stuff. When we smile, it goes big and then fades. So it's overshoot and settle in an arc. And this is something, I mentioned this in a class earlier. If ever you see some people taking pictures and it's like, oh, smile, everyone smiles, but maybe the picture takes a little too long. It's like, oh, wait, I've got to get the settings right. Everyone's trying to hold that smile, but the longer it goes, you get the people who get bored right away. I can, okay, I'm done. But some people, it's like, I'll hold a smile. And over time, it's just kind of like, creeps in and in and in. And the eyes start to relax a little bit. They're trying to hold it, but those muscles are not made to just kind of hold a pose and stay there. So when we smile, it goes out and then in and settles into a more relaxed state. So that transition could be 8 frames, but there might be an overshoot, or there might be a slow settle. And usually it's like pixels worth of motion, not a big, long, slow motion. Yeah, that's, Daniel, that's the thing I see most. 100%, like, of all shots that I see of student work, no, wait, let me, I'm putting two concepts together. 100%, the thing that I see most often forgotten is overshooting. It is the absolute most forgotten thing. Not everyone forgets it, but globally, of all the shots I ever look at for students, when something's not feeling right, when the shot is kind of like, meh, it's okay, it's not alive, it's missing the overshoots. That's the big one. Is there a hard rule for overshooting? No. It's, and actually, Yeti, let me answer your question first. Am I taking a look at 2 versions of ref for the ending of my shot? Oh yeah, I'd definitely be happy to do that. And actually, you could send it right now because I'm going to have to go fairly soon, so I do want to take a look at that for you. So, is there a hard rule for overshooting? No. The kind of concept to me of overshooting is a, I guess you could call it the inverse of anticipation. So anticipation is building up energy, so we kind of compress down to explode out. So compress to go. Or if I'm going to run that way, I'm going to go back and then build up energy. It's the buildup of energy. Sometimes it can go the opposite direction. Sometimes I might go down to jump that way. You're building up energy. Overshoot is excess energy that has to dissipate. So for example, I always go to this, but the easiest example is a punch. So if you're doing a punch here, and let's get that in line, and I'm going to just punch towards the edge of the screen. If I'm animating this and I don't animate overshoots, I'm going to get this big punch, and the fist just goes and stops. Well, where was the energy in that punch? There was so much energy going into hitting this object, and the arm just kind of stops. Even if I don't slow in, even if I, like, as an exaggeration, you could go slow. You don't want to do that. That's going to be a very weak hit. But you very fast, and then it just stops dead. What caused it to stop? Where did that energy go? It just disappeared. It literally just went gone, and the arm froze. Or you might go and then just go into a moving hold. Well, again, that's a lot of energy just to disappear. Instead, if you do a punch, and I'm just going to fling my arm forward as much as possible, watch where my hand goes. If I do that, you can see for just a few frames, my hand goes past the edge of the screen. I'm not leaning forward, or I'm not trying to. I'm just doing this. And if I do that, that's the overshoot. It's the energy pushing my arm forward, and then that excess energy stretching it and then releasing to a relaxed state. Or even if I'm not relaxed, you see, like, there's that little bit of shake. There's just a little, like, jerk. So it's that loss of energy. Same thing when we smile. It's energy, and that then relaxes. When we do a motion like this, it's a lot of energy that moves our hand up that has to go somewhere and then come back. Isn't your body bouncing from it also part of that energy? Exactly. It's not just the arm, it's everything. So that overshoot is not just the arm, it's not just the body, it's a little bit of everything, because that energy is going to transfer down the arm, the body is going to try to react to it, but then the body will want to reset itself. A lot of things are going into that overshoot. So it's not just a one thing. For example, if I do this, my clavicles go up. You can see my shoulder kind of move up here as I do this. You can actually see the thing here bend as I'm doing that. And what causes the overshoot is my clavicle then wants to relax. This is holding a lot of weight. It's holding the entire arm here. So it's not going to go and then just stay there. It's going to want to, okay, relax. Whew. Even though my arm itself is kind of staying in the same pose, that clavicle relaxing causes the overshoot in the hand. Now, if I kind of fling my fingers up like that, this is overlap, which is a similar thing to overshooting. There are two concepts that sometimes are very hard to distinguish. Usually overshooting is the energy trying to dissipate and has to go somewhere. So the object will keep on going. Whereas overlapping is one object following another and inheriting that original motion and then stopping afterwards. So two slightly different concepts. But it is a very important concept to really apply. So I hope that makes sense. It's not always going to be there. For example, I could just go, hi. I don't have to overshoot this and have my hand come back. It's subtle, hi. But if I did this, I just kind of flick my wrist, you can see my hand automatically wants to come back to a relaxed state. I'm not exaggerating this. This is just flick my hand and then it comes back. So to really think of that energy in a pose, and the stronger the force, the more likely it is going to be to overshoot. And with brows, you see this a lot. With smiles, you see this a lot. It's not going to go bounce up and down because it is a small muscle, but you'll still see that relaxation. Okay, and hey, Tinseltown, hello. So, Yeti, let's jump into your shot, and then I think, unless anyone else has questions, I'll probably have to get going pretty soon after that. So, this is your reference, and this is, you mentioned for, let me see, for the ending of my shot. Okay, nice. Oh, I'm still working on my parkour shot. Okay, I'll take a look at that right after this. So, oh, nice. That already feels really good. Very nice. Let's look at the other one. Oh, I don't know which one I like more, actually. I kind of like this one. I like the swoop of your hips, the way you kind of anticipate up here, and then your leg kicks out and just kind of go whoosh, swoops through. That feels really, I guess you could say jazzy. And I love the twist in your body, how your chest is rotated this way. Oops. But your hips are kind of rotated the other way. Now let me look back at this one. Yeah, I like the second one more. This one is nice, but at the end, your hips are pretty much the same kind of alignment. There's a little change, but your feet aren't quite as interesting, I find. And this one, like the line that you create here is just really cool. Very nice. Yeah, I like this one. The other thing I like about it is the twist that happens in the feet. So your feet are kind of facing forward. You then turn this way, and then you end with your feet going that way. Let's see what happens in this one. So this one you face this way. And okay, it's similar. It's just slower. Yeah, I like the second one. I would say it's not over the top. Oh no, you want to exaggerate. This is a guy is going on stage. This is his big moment. It's going to be a nice contrast from the looking at the notes and, oh, what do I do? What do I do? Oh, shoot. And then he stands up, quiet, and then he explodes onto the stage. Yeah, I don't think it's too over the top. If anything, you could probably push it a little bit more when you get into the animation. Just kind of push up the timing and the spacing of things, especially for the arms, the kind of explosive out. And you can see the overshoot here of this arm coming down. Now the other arm, it's hard to see the overshoot. It is in there. It's right here. It's going down a little bit and then back up. The reason we can't see it is because the whole body is also moving in that direction. Cool. And yeah, in terms of the posing, like you've got this pose that's already good in your shot. It's going to be kind of pushing this anticipation pose here. The kind of the down pose here. And then the last pose here. And then breaking down those, the in-betweens there. Yeah, good job. Really nice. And definitely let me know if you have any questions on that. Now, Abramation, let me check out your post here. Still working on my parkour shot, and I have a few more poses, but I haven't refined them much yet. I don't remember if it was you or Cameron who took a look at my shot earlier. I think I did. Maybe Cameron did as well. But do you think you could give me some advice? I can see some problems already, but I don't know where I'll be able to catch one of your streams next. I'd be happy to. I only have about 10 minutes before I have to get going. I have to drive to the city to get to an appointment meeting. But yeah, I'd be happy to take a look at it. So let's see. While you're uploading that, we can kind of just look at another thing here, because I love looking at animation, and I hope that I do hope this has been interesting. I know we covered a lot of things, went over a lot of random stuff, but Abramation, send me a link on the Pratt Bros Discord down below, and I can take a look at it as soon as I have time. So maybe when I get back tonight, if I have time, or some other time, and I'd be happy to take a look at it for you. I'm glad you love these the movie paloozas. I missed doing them. I really enjoy these. And when I found out that I can actually do them on Twitch, I was like, yes, I can bring them back. I love it. I love analyzing animation. Every time I look at animation, I learn something new. And just kind of new concepts, new ways of pushing something. It's like, oh wait, maybe I should try that on my next shot. And the more you do it, the more you kind of build this visual library of little tips and tricks. For example, like when I started animating faces, it was so hard for me to animate faces because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just moving things randomly and hoping for the best. But when I learned that most facial poses take 3 or 4 frames to move, like from one expression to the next, from one big pose to the next, suddenly things become so much easier. And as you're blocking out a shot, it's like, okay, I've got pose here, pose here, pose here, and it's going to hold for like big hold, and you're only animating a tiny little bit, and then just easing in and out of those moments, overshooting a little bit in and out of those moments, and done. And the rest, like the same thing with body poses and stuff too. Oh, I'm glad you like it, Shiri. I'm no animator and I've been looking, but great stream and explanation. Oh, I'm glad. Thank you so much. It's good for other artists to see how they work on different parts of the pipeline. Yeah, that's... I always love seeing like concept artists and storyboard artists, previs artists, and like rendering afterwards. I love seeing that as well. Especially the rendering part, I understand a little bit. I used to do rendering on my own time just as a hobby. But to see like professionals do it, it's just like, wow, you took that and made it into, well, like this, where the water looks like water, and the skin looks like skin, and the hair looks just gorgeous. It's so cool. But I guess with that, are you going to be gone to the city long? Probably. I leave now. It takes an hour to get to the city, which is why it's always such a pain. Hour to probably about 4 or 5 hours just to get back. So like 2 hours of that is traveling, unfortunately. But I should be back sometime tonight in the next 4 or 5 hours. Yeah. So if you're still around or need something, definitely let me know. But with that, let's see, there we go. With that, I guess we can call it here. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for listening in, for following along. I hope it was interesting, especially when we kind of go over the same thing over and over. And hopefully, especially for those of you who are learning to animate, it gave some insight on the animation side of things, but also on the analyzing side of things, because analyzing is just as important to us as animators as actually animating. We need to learn why we're doing something and not just moving it for random reasons. So with that, hope you guys have a great weekend. Best of luck on your assignments for those of you in Animation Mentor or just working on any shots. And I'll see you guys around. Take care. Bye.